What's up, kinfolk? Welcome to the #1 college football show. I am your host, RJ Young. Thank you for watching on the Fox Sports app, YouTube, or listening wherever you get your podcast. Today, we got to talk about which Big Ten West school should most fear the entry of UCLA and USC to the Big Ten Conference in 2024, while we muse about the Big Ten finally doing what we all wanted to do, which is remove the divisions, have the top two teams play each other in the Big Ten championship game. And we're going to talk with former Texas A&M All-American tight end and Birmingham Stallion tight end, Jace Sternberger. But first, it's list season here on the #1 college football show. It's my third list in 2 shows. We're going to talk about the top 10 NFL draft prospects for me, but you're going to see 5 here on the screen, starting with number 1, USC quarterback Caleb Williams, who I think the comp for this is Andrew Luck, and as far as his ability to immediately turn around a franchise and make them into a winner. That's what Andrew Luck did for Indianapolis, and there was good reason for that. He was the best prospect coming out that year at quarterback, and you could see with his demeanor how it was infectious to the franchise. I almost said program because I'm thinking about college football. What does Caleb Williams do well? Well, almost everything. I mean, the dude is a walking scramble drill, a walking problem solver, elite problem solver. There is no play that is dead with number 13 at quarterback. We know this. My question for Williams, though, going into this year where he is the can't-miss prospect going into the 2023 season is, can you show us a little bit of statesmanship? And I want to really be careful about this and be clear about this. The guy that Caleb Williams most reminds me of in demeanor is Baker Mayfield, which is great in college. I love Baker. As many of you know, I started the YouTube channel, my journey as a broadcaster, my journey as a show host, to doing the 9 to 11 by myself at Tulsa Animal, to getting this show at Fox Sports, begins with Baker Mayfield and planting a flag at Ohio State in what was a tremendously cathartic win for me, because I watched very closely as Ohio State took apart my favorite team in Norman, right? And the thing about Baker was chippy, equally balanced with one on both shoulders. That worked for him all the way through college. Goes from walk-on to starter to Heisman winner to playing the college football playoff to the #1 overall pick in the draft. What I have learned about Baker's pro career is once you get to that mark of being, I'm the best there ever was, there needs to be a natural move to, you know who I am, which means that you're going to say a whole hell of a lot less, and you got a lot of other people say it for you. Because the thing that really, I think, might hold Caleb back as a pro is that people are going to want to get after him in a way that, frankly, I wanted to be more like Pat Mahomes, where people just want to get behind him. So putting F Utah on your fingernails probably needs to be a thing of the past, right? I want to see more of the guy that's going to be the CEO of an NFL franchise. And what we know about CEOs is not a whole hell of a lot, right? What we know about them is, do we like looking at them? Do we like what they say? Do we like how they make us feel about the company they represent, right? I think that is important when you're evaluating any quarterback in the first round, because that is going to be the face of your franchise for years to come. And that's all Caleb has left to do. We're not talking about him as a football player anymore. I've heard too many people that I respect say, that's the best quarterback I've ever seen in college. I want to see the best quarterback and the best person that Caleb Williams could possibly be in 2023. And I would not be surprised to find out that man wins a Pac-12 championship, plays in a college football playoff, and maybe becomes the first repeat Heisman winner since Archie Griffin. Number 2, we got Ohio State wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. I think the comp here is pretty outstanding and right on the money in CeeDee Lamb at Dallas, who I believe set the franchise record at Dallas last year for catches in a season with 107. I wish they'd have thrown the ball 107 times at Oklahoma, but I digress. There is no other wide receiver in the sport like him today. Not with his size, not with his route running, not with his feet off the line, not with his physicality. If you are the quarterback at Ohio State, looking at you, Kyle McCord, Devin Brown, every time you drop back, you should find 18. If there are 2 people on 18, he's open. If there are 3 people on 18, somebody else is running wide open with nobody on him. But that's because you got 3 people on him, because 2 ain't enough. That's who Marvin Harrison Jr. is. Very excited to see what his 2023 looks like. Number 3 on the list, Georgia tight end Brock Bowers, who I think the comp here is San Francisco 49ers tight end George Kittle. The reigning Mackey Award winner? Sure. A first-team All-American? I guess. But here's the thing. Every college football team that Brock Bowers has played on has won the national championship, and he's been the best offensive player on it as a freshman, as a sophomore, and now going into a junior year. It's ridiculous, man. Like, I'm trying to think about this in a way that makes more sense. Brock Bowers is so good that Darnell Washington had to wait for Brock Bowers to run his routes because he's too on the depth chart. Brock Bowers is so good that the best tight end prospect that we had seen in recent memory, and Eric Gilbert, didn't even see the field and is transferred to Nebraska. Brock Bowers is so good that even Kirby Smart says, if we got to throw the ball, throw it to him. And not only that, Kirby Smart says, if we got to run the ball, can we run it end around to Brock? I have not seen a tight end like this in my lifetime. And the only time that I can think of a better tight end prospect, Oklahoma fans will absolutely enjoy this one, is Keith Jackson. What Keith Jackson was able to do with Barry Switzer in the wishbone should be illegal because no tight end was supposed to be able to do that. At one point, Keith Jackson should have been back there catching punts. Okay? That's who Brock Bowers is. If you saw him back there catching punts, you'd be fired up about him too. All right? I expect him to be a first-round pick, and you can understand why. Number 4 on the list for me is Penn State offensive tackle Olu Fashanu, who would have been a first-round selection had he come out according to the draft analysts. Sure. Number 5 on the list, North Carolina quarterback Drake May, who I think the comp is RG plus 3. That is RG3 plus 3 inches because RG3 is 6'2" and Drake May is 6'5". Now, I'm going to throw this out here. Producer Tyler and I used to try to, we still try to sharpen every take that I give, right? Sharpen the segments, ask good questions, interrogate what it is that I think, what it is that he thinks, and give you the best possible take here on the number 1 college football show. I ain't see it with Drake May. And I was loud about it with him. I was like, I don't see it, dog. And he's like, RJ, can you keep watching? I'm going to watch this North Carolina State game. I don't see it. But then I take a look back. I take in what producer Tyler's throwing down, and I do what I do, which is go look at stats, go look at comparables. And what I find is, oh yeah, I have wildly underrated this man, who was at one point committed to Alabama and took his commitment to North Carolina and then forgot about it. But at North Carolina last year, he completed 66% of his passes for 4,321 yards with 38 pass TDs, rushed for 698 yards with 7 rush TDs, which means, and this is the part that really sold this for me, Drake May is just the 6th quarterback since 2010 to pass for 4,000 yards, throw 35 touchdowns, rush for 650 yards, and rush for 7 touchdowns in a single season alongside Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson, Marcus Mariota, Johnny Manziel, and RG3. Put another way, that is 4 Heisman winners and Deshaun Watson. All right? That was enough for me. Okay? It might not matter that I can't see it. It might matter that it's just right there in his comparables. And the reason I keep saying RG3 is because that's what it is. If you go look at the stats that RG3 put up in that 2011 campaign, they're basically similar. Like RG3 ran for, I think, 3 more TDs and threw 2 more interceptions. But the pass yards, basically the same. All right? That's who Drake May was at North Carolina last year. Now, with Phil Longo being the new the new offense coordinator, my bad, Luke Fickell, at Wisconsin, I'll be interested to see what Drake May does in 2023. I get people are trying to compare him to Justin Herbert. Maybe that's because of recency. But again, if you're watching how he moves, if you're watching how he throws the ball, okay, I underrated RG3 at Baylor too because it's Baylor. Frankly, it's Baylor. I didn't expect Baylor to be good. Baylor changed that. Same thing with North Carolina could be true. Number 6 on the list, we got Notre Dame offensive tackle Joe Alt. Number 7 on the list, we got defensive tackle Mason Smith, who's coming off of a knee injury, and a dude that I really argue with myself about putting on because I don't really like putting first-round prospects on a board that didn't play last year, but I'm basically overruled by the consensus. And that's another thing that I've learned about making these lists is y'all catch feelings if my list looks that much dissimilar from everybody else's list. So here's Mason Smith, who I think could be the best defensive tackle in the SEC, which is saying a lot because that dude's been at Georgia the last couple of years. But he could be the reason that LSU is not just playing to win another SEC West Division championship, but maybe wins an SEC championship. Number 8 on the list is Kool-Aid McKinstry. Again, I argue with this. The passes defended, that's great. 16 passes defended to be tied for the lead the SEC last year also means that people thought they should be throwing on you. And that tells me a lot too. Patrick Surtain II, didn't nobody want to throw on him that draft eligible year. You went to the other side. So if you're looking at Kool-Aid McKinstry and you're going, I see food, I see the meal, I see how we going to eat today, I don't feel great about that if I'm looking to draft a cornerback in the first round. Now, that said, anybody that Nick Saban plays at cornerback needs to get, everybody's pass. Because A, it's Alabama. B, it's Nick Saban. And C, Nick Saban is a cornerbacks coach. He is a DB. As a matter of fact, I would not be surprised to find out that he's coaching the DBs in 2023 because of, well, frankly, they weren't that great last year under Pete Golding. So I'm inclined to see the improvement, but I can argue with you all you want about whether or not he has the talent, because he does have the talent. I just want to see him put it together. It's the difference between being a first-round pick and a second-round pick to me. At number 9, Alabama outside linebacker Dallas Turner, who I talked about a little bit earlier this week in my post-spring top 25, had 37 tackles, 8 for loss, 4 sacks last year. I expect you to talk about Dallas Turner the way you were talking about Will Anderson last year as well. And then at number 10, Tennessee quarterback Joe Milton. Now, I realize that you're probably only going to see Joe Milton here, but allow me to explain myself. The first thing to say about Joe Milton is the way that you talk about Anthony Richardson also tells me that you like big, fast, strong-armed quarterbacks from the SEC East. And that's who Joe Milton is at 6'5", 250. His comp, as I've been giving comps all along here, his comp is Samus Aran. His comp is Mega Man. His comp's Josh Allen. Samus Aran, Mega Man, Josh Allen all got arm cannons. That's the comp here. Like, the stories about Joe Milton and how far and how hard he can throw a football are outstanding. But my favorite one comes from Ramel Keaton, who had told Tennessee Volunteers beat writers that he's got a story about Joe Milton throwing the ball hard. It's that they were in practice and Joe threw him a ball and Keaton caught it. He split his hand open catching the football. He split it down the center of the palm where the meat go, because that's how hard and how quickly that ball was spinning coming out of Joe Milton's hand. He could throw a football 70 yards from his knees. I'm a catcher. Pop times are very important to me. Being able to not pump the ball and get it down to second base is very important to me. I only saw one man throw somebody out from their knees, and the man that had a cannon like Joe Milton. You just don't see it. It's also a dude that grew up in Pahokee, Florida, chasing rabbits. All right? Again, it's a dude that was so big that when he got on the campus in the summer, the defensive line at Tennessee was mad as hell. Like, the whole room was mad as hell because they thought the position coach brought in another defensive end. That's who Joe Milton is. As much as you love Hendon Hooker, and I know how much you love Hendon Hooker, Joel Klatt loved Hendon Hooker. You ought to love you some Joe Milton. I realize you didn't like the way it went in Michigan, but you didn't like the way it went for Hendon Hooker at Virginia Tech. I'm saying here, I'm trying to give you an easy win here. This is an easy win. Joe Milton showed you what he could do against Vanderbilt, and you said, RG, it's Vanderbilt. All right. He beat Clemson and won Orange Bowl MVP. Do I need to say more here? I don't think I do. That's Brew McCoy he throwing to. That's Squirrel White he throwing to. Man, they got some SEC names over there. That's Jabari Smalls that he got in the backfield. I'm very excited about the walking scramble drill with the Samus Aran Mega Man arm cannon attached to his right arm. That is Joe Milton. Nobody's more fired up about Tennessee's quarterback than me. All right. Let's go from my top 10 2024 NFL draft prospects to a question about the Big Ten, which is considering removing divisions going into the 2024 season. You'll know 2024 will be the season in which the Big Ten adds USC and UCLA to form a 16-team conference. In so doing, the question was posed by my awesome editor at Fox Sports, Bob Harkins. Does the Big Ten West, or in particular a Big Ten West school, need to be concerned about taking a step back in their division, or, at all if they're removed, with UCLA and USC joining the conference? And I gave that some thought, right? Because I'm thinking about the Big Ten West and how it has been traditionally weaker than the Big Ten East, especially since they went from leaders and legends, which I'm so glad they did away with, because everybody didn't like those titles, but now we got this real East and West thing, and I like that. It's cool. But you look at the West and you see Wisconsin. Okay. Northwestern's played the Big Ten title game twice in the last 4 years. Purdue has played in the Big Ten title game representing the West. Nebraska has not played in the Big Ten title game since it first entered the league. Okay. Back when it was leaders and legends, and they got stomped on by Wisconsin 70-31 in that title game. And frankly, that was the last year that they won 10 games at Nebraska too. So if you are Matt Rule and Nebraska, you got to get on the good foot, and you got to get on the good foot right away, because it could be what it is right now in perpetuity if you don't get it fixed quick, fast, and in a hurry. At a time when Purdue and Northwestern got to play in a Big Ten title game precisely because the Big Ten West was not as strong as the Big Ten East, because Wisconsin's taking a step back. Iowa's offense has held it back. Minnesota ought to be good, but I think Minnesota's been, historically about where they should be, but they could be better. Illinois showed up last year to show everybody, give Michigan a what for, that they're about it. I'm saying if you're Nebraska, you're a Nebraska fan. You're a Husker. You're proud. You were the most feared football team north of Oklahoma for the better part of 40 years. And even then, you could give Oklahoma the what for in the 80s and 90s, right? I remember a time when nobody wanted anything to do with Nebraska football. Hell, Peyton Manning didn't want nothing to do with Nebraska football. Ahman Green gave them everything they wanted. That is who Nebraska wants to get back to being, and I understand it, especially with USC coming in, UCLA coming in, more USC than UCLA here of late, because they got the Heisman winner and they got Lincoln Riley, and all things Lincoln Riley have been really great. Like, as much as people want to talk about me being down on USC, I was also the first person to point out to y'all that they were going to win 10 games in 2022, and everybody wanted to act like I was crazy. And then when they won 11, didn't nobody want to tell me that I was right. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. You knew one person that was up on them. That's me. Well, let's talk about Michigan, though. Let's talk about Michigan. Some of y'all will get that joke from the top 25 last year. Others of y'all, it's just going to go over your head. But the thing about Nebraska that I think is really interesting is that fan base is all for you. Like, I am floored by the support that Husker fans have for Nebraska football. I was fortunate to go to Lincoln last year for an event, and it is Nebraska football full-time. They care about nothing else. So if the Huskers ever get back to good, they probably will stay good, because they will get the kind of backing that other programs can only dream about. So, Matt Rule, job, year one, get them to bowl eligibility, and then we'll see. All right, now let's do our USFL Player of the Week interview with Texas A&M tight end and former All-American and USFL Birmingham Stallions tight end, Jace Sternberger. Jace, I'm very excited to have you join us here on the #1 college football show. Jace Sternberger, former Texas A&M tight end and All-American, and now Birmingham Stallions tight end, man. How you doing?
Doing great. Glad to be on the show. Thanks for having me.
Right on, bro. Let's get started with what I thought was a breakout performance for you to start in week 1, where you're catching passes from your dude, Alex Magoo, and everybody's trying to figure out where does this chemistry come from. And Coach Holt says to me, oh, yeah, they room together. How much is that figuring into you having some early success this year?
I think it plays a huge factor into it. Anytime, like I said, I got the same luck when I was at A&M. Me and Kellen Mond were roommates. So it's just something about being around your quarterback every day, and just that, you just kind of you pick up on each other's personalities and certain things, this and that, and it always just it translates over to the football field. So, when I'm asking questions, Alex is kind of knowing like how my brain works, what I'm processing, what I'm thinking. And so it's like, it's easier for him to answer questions for me. And now that I'm hearing Alex's answers, it's easier for me to kind of run my routes based off knowing what Alex is looking for and like, what he likes, what he doesn't like. And so I think, like I said, when you're sleeping in the same room as another person, like you're going to get, it helps. Obviously, like I said, you spend a lot of time together. So I'd say it played a huge factor into it.
It seems so, dude. And I was kind of jarred when Coach Holt said, look, I told Jace when he got here, you got to pick it up. And you got to pick it up pretty quick, because we're not doing addition subtraction this year. We're on the multiplication division. I'm going, hey, man, Jace is a player. I don't know if you're going to try to run him off or not, but that's not what I would do.
Yeah.
Feels like you were picking it up pretty good, though.
Yeah, and like I said, I give credit to some of the former teams I've been on, and just the systems and all the attention to detail that it taught me good study habits, almost study habits I wish I used in school. But now that we're here, so when Coach Holtz from day one was like, we're not going to do the day one install, like this is an older team, everybody's already been here, and it was basically like, I think you're capable enough that if you study and take care of your business, you'll be able to pick it up just fine, and so I kind of looked at it as a challenge, like, well, I'm not about to be the guy that's holding everybody back. Like, oh, we got to redo this for Jace. We got to go back over this for Jace. Like, I did that enough my rookie year in Green Bay. So, like, I didn't, that's a horrible feeling. So, it's like, I didn't want to do that again. And so, like I said, again, being with Alex every night, asking him questions, this and that. And, like I said, and once you're back on the field, everything just starts to make sense anyways. So, um, most definitely, like I said, it was an intense camp just learning the playbook just because it's such a short amount of time.
Yeah, you are dealing with a very condensed period to try to get everything installed so that you're playing week one. I want to say your training camp lasted 3 weeks, if I got that right.
If that.
If that.
3 weeks and some off days, travel days for scrimmages, like, so I mean it's like 15, 14 days really, if we're being honest.
Not nothing like spring practice in college football, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, but I'm enjoying hearing you talk about this as a job. It's one of the things that I try to get across to high school kids I still talk to now is this is a day job. That's how you have to treat it. You have to actually go to work to get better. But I want to go back through your journey a little piece by piece here. So allow me. You played JUCO ball at Northeastern Oklahoma, which to those of us that are from Oklahoma is NEO. And we all have friends
Yep.
that played ball at NEO A&M in Miami, Oklahoma. What was your experience like at NEO?
Man, my dad actually played baseball there for a little bit, so like I kind of already everybody, like I said, if you're from Oklahoma, you've always heard stories about NEO, but like I said, I got spoiled. My situation when I got to NEO, it was a team that had already been there for 2 years, so it was a group of Darwin Thompson. It was guys who had already been in there for a while, and it wasn't like I I was the oldest guy, or it was a fresh face, and like I was coming onto a team who's like, no, they've already paid their dues. Like it's time to win. All of the coaches, I don't think any of the coaches stayed on staff after that year. Everybody was like, it was it was honestly so refreshing, especially coming from Kansas, like being on a team and being around coaches who were all working towards the same goal. And it was like everybody was trying to get out of there. Like we love NEO, we love the 313, Paradise Hall, our dorm rooms. You know what I'm saying? Like that's all great. Never take that for granted again. Like loved it. But at the same time, we're like, we're not going to be, none of us are going to be here next year. Like, so we got to get with it. We're going to win games and we're going to get out. But man, the stories of off the field and like just getting dinner at random restaurants and just eating the same stuff over and over and just, yeah, it's just, you just kind of got to know if you know, that's the best way I can describe it.
No, that is a great way to put it, but I'm gonna flesh this out. Number one, Darwin Thompson went to Jenks High School in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and played for the Super Bowl winning Kansas City Chiefs. For those of you that don't know, second thing to really say out there is Jace is being kind when he talks about NEO. I went there for Boys State, which means I was there for about a week, right? And I'm staying in the same dorms and. I remember going, oh, that's why this is a train station, right? People come through here not to live, but to stop to get to the place that they're going. And when it's working well, it's working like Grand Central. And it certainly seemed to work that way for you. But let's talk about how you got to NEO. And I want to go back to high school and work back. So I get to know Jace Sternberger when I'm covering Oklahoma football and recruiting for a rivals team site at the time. And they're like, I want you to go check out this kid at Kingfisher, Oklahoma. And I'm going, Kingfisher? Like, you'll know him when you see him. All right. So I get out there and I'm watching Yellow Jackets football. And I said, oh, yeah. Okay. So the big white dude running around, that's the guy. Cool. I'll go talk to Jace. 14-0 as a senior. And I think 59-6 in 4 years at Kingfisher. What do you remember most about, well, in particular, that state championship team?
The state championship team, I remember, was just like, I think I had maybe less than like 15 catch. Like I didn't even, tight end was like fun for me, but like just being on that defensive team, like that was such a fun defense to be a part of. And like that was my first year playing defensive end. Like, oh, I just remember Blanchard and just hearing about them all year. Cause I was like my sophomore year, I was on that team, but like I didn't play. I was a tight end, but like our old OC, he wasn't on the team that won state, but our old OC was like, oh, their defenses don't do or their defenses doesn't match up good for tight ends, so we're not going to use a tight end this week. So I was just like, okay, like I guess we're the only offense who doesn't know how to use tight. You know what I'm saying? Like now we just like, okay, this is the kryptonite defense, I guess. So I wasn't even like, oh yeah, I didn't have no emotional ties to that game, but it was like, coming in as the new guy. Now I'm starting at tight end and defensive end. It was like all we were hearing about was Blanchard. I'm like, well, I don't care about any of those guys. Like I wasn't even here when that happened. Kind of how I feel about New Orleans. Like I wasn't here last year, so like all of the stuff that happened last year, like I don't care. Like don't tie me into that. Like you know, and but yeah, I would definitely say just playing defense in high school and just how much fun it was, and playing defensive end and just like I said, and we had Caden Jackson who was a monster for 3A football
Yeah.
on the D line. Like having both of us, and then we had Gatlin Squires, just a hard nosed kid. Like that defense was fun. Like that was really fun.
I had a lot of fun watching y'all play ball. You mentioned Blanchard. This is at a time when I believe I have a stringing credit in every county in Oklahoma, working at the Oklahoman. It's a lot of fun, right? So Blanchard, Lindsay, Kingfisher were all on the beat at one point in time. But you follow that year and go to Kansas, right? Where I believe you're the only player I've ever met who goes from a 14-0 program to an 0-12 program. What was it like
Yeah.
your redshirt freshman year there?
It was like it was. I'm not even like I'm not making fun of the team because I was a part of it, so I'm making fun of myself. But it was like I don't think you could script like a worse ways to lose games. Like I remember my first game, it was like 100 degrees playing South Dakota State. Oh, we're I'm thinking I'm not gonna lie, this is how oblivious I was to like the talent of college football. Like so we get to KU, and me and my buddies laugh about this all the time. We get to KU, and new coach, he brings in, we didn't have the transfer portal, but we had so many grad transfers. Like we got dudes from the SEC, we got guys from this and that. I genuinely like I laugh about this all the time. I remember calling my dad. I'm like, Dad, I'm telling you, these guys don't know about like how good we're about to be. Like we have these transfers. I'm like, I'm telling you, we're about to wait. Like I was so ignorant and stupid. We go that for. I'm thinking we're gonna blow out South Dakota State. Long story short, we're down like 20 in the first quarters. I'm like, all right, this might be. You know what I'm saying? This obviously we look good in training camp, but there was a reason for that. I remember that game. We lost that game on a. We were supposed to spike the ball and kick a game-winning field goal, and we muffed the spike, and the clock ran out. And when I say like that was how every game went from case, and we'd have the best. I swear, every week it would be like that. Like you wouldn't want to get your hopes up because after you lose, it's like all right, that's the mindset. Like it is what it is. But for some reason, I don't know. And I was registered. I wasn't even playing. By Saturday the next week, I was convinced that we were gonna win. Like I was so convinced we were gonna win. First play of the game, blocked punt, touchdown, lose by 40. So to answer your question, it was interesting. Like it was an experience for sure. Like I can't make it up how it was going. Like, I can't make it up.
Well, it's a part of your journey that I really value because you go from there to NEO to work yourself back into a position to get offers from Boise State, Florida State, and Texas A&M. And if I got this right, you are the first commitment for Jimbo Fisher at A&M. What do you remember most about not just becoming an All-American tight end, but in particular, when did you figure out that the Aggie fan base might be as rabid, if not more rabid, than the Sooner fan base?
And another fun fact about me, that's I think it kind of travels with me everywhere I go. I was David Beatty's first commitment too at
That's
Kansas.
right, at Kansas, yeah.
Because I was originally going to go to NEO at a high school, and then literally Colby Ellis was like, "No, you got to take this opportunity. Like, you need to go to." Like, he convinced me to go to Kansas still. So I was like, "Okay, like you're right, I will." But to answer your question, uh, yeah, I was Jimbo's first commitment. And what part did you ask me about
When
Jimbo?
did you know that the Aggie fan base was as rabid or more than the Sooner fan base?
Oh, as soon as because that was the thing with Coach Fisher and them. They called me when they were at Florida State and like asked if I was interested, blah blah blah, and I was like, of course I'm interested in Florida State. Like, what are you talking about? And like I remember Coach Craig is like, why are you at Kansas? Why didn't you play? Like, did you rob a 7-Eleven? Like, what do you? Is there something we don't know about you?
7-Eleven.
And I was like, no, like I'm telling you, like the in-state schools just they weren't rocking with me. It is what it is. But I noticed how crazy A&M fan base, and crazy by meaning like I said, I'm one of them. I love them. Is that I think my JUCO highlight tape was at like maybe 2,500 views, and that was on a Tuesday. Then when I got the not permission, but I basically told Coach Fisher and them I wasn't gonna post anything. Like I was gonna show my loyalty to them. Like I'm y'all's. I'm not gonna post this. Make a big deal. Once I posted that I was going on a visit and A&M fans found out about me, I remember I was actually going to KU that night to see some old buddies and stuff because we had at JUCO. Miami. That's not a far drive. My huddle views went from like 3,000 that night. By the end of the next day, it was at like 19,000, just because off of just off me tweeting I was going there for a visit. By Sunday, I think it got all the way up to 30,000. Like it was the craziest experience, like thing I've ever witnessed. I was just like, I mean, this is cool for like the next week, but I mean, obviously no one's gonna care about this later. But I was like, right now, this is incredible. Like I kept watching my highlight tape. This is like, this is awesome. And so I was already, and I joke about it, but I'm being dead serious. So, like anytime a coach comes to a new program, like they're trying to install the standard, the foundation, what they want it to be. Well, David Beatty came from Texas A&M. Our star transfer wide receiver, Laquivionte Gonzalez, he came from Texas A&M. So for 2 whole years at Kansas, all I heard about was how great A&M was, the town, the team, how great the fans are, how amazing all this is. So when Jimbo's like, or Coach Craig was like, I don't know if you keep up with TV, but there's rumors, you know what I'm saying? Like, we just need to hold tight and see what happens. I was like, this is a no-brainer. I was like, I'm not gonna think twice about this. And it was just so crazy because I was really about to commit to Boise State. But Coach Patterson, who's now at USF, he's like, Jace, like let your emotional high wear down. Like just give it a day or two. You know what I'm saying? Like just get home, relax. Literally that day I was letting my emotional high die down. That's when Coach Craig called me from Florida State. So I was just like, all right, this is the sign,
No, man, that's what's up. We're running up on time, but I do want to ask you one more question about your 2018 season, for which you win All-American honors. Really quickly, what stood out to you most about that year that vaulted you into the 3rd round in the NFL draft and started your pro career?
Just that I know I'm not crazy. Like everybody thought I was so crazy for leaving KU and you're going to the JUCO. Like, who do you think you are? What are you doing? And then it's like, I went to A&M because I looked at their first 4 games. They played Clemson and Alabama, and I was like, you're either good enough or you're not. Like, at least if you go there and like you'll know. Like, I played in the best conference. You know what I'm saying? Like, we'll see like if you're good enough, you're good enough. If not, you're not. But it was like once I was doing that, I was like, man, like I know I'm not crazy for this. Like, that's why I still got that chip on my shoulder because it's like I feel like what I'm going through right now is the same exact thing. It's just I'm in an older body, older situation because it's USFL and not JUCO. Like that's literally my mindset right now for everything.
Hey, man, it served you well, and I hope it serves you well going into the future. Jace Sternberger, former Texas A&M All-American tight end and USFL Birmingham Stallions tight end. Thank you so much for taking time.
Thanks for having me.
My thanks once again to Jace Sternberger for joining the show, and that's going to do it for this episode of the #1 college football show. This Friday episode has been one of our better performing episodes of the week. So kudos to you guys who continue to watch this and download it over the weekend. So we'll keep doing it. But thanks as always to our lead producer, Tyler Wojak, our senior producer, Catherine Donnelly, our director, Kyle Holly, our social media maven, Javion Duncan, our lead of screening, Jack Coakley, our production assistant, Kiara Santana. I am the host, RJ. We will talk to y'all on Wednesday. Deuces.